This is the third in the series of talking about selling a distressed business. As you may recall, the first two segments dealt with, one, some of the unique aspects of selling a distressed business. Second segment dealt with common mistakes that buyers make in buying a distressed business. This segment will focus on key points to take away when you're trying to sell a distressed business. So there's 11 takeaways from my firm's point of view and our experience in the business of selling distressed businesses and distressed assets, and I'd like to share those with you for the good of the order, if you will. The first thing is that when you have issues that are hairy issues or they're thorny issues that are problematic issues that in some cases are going to spook or concern your buyer, our opinion is you need to detail those up front as an opportunity to improve, as opposed to leave it to the buyer to discover during due diligence. People make a mistake in not disclosing every single bad fact they can think of up front, and so the buyer can perceive those as for what they are and perceive those as opportunities to change the business. Secondarily, there has to be a financial person inside the company that is the point person on every single financial request, so that you're incredibly responsive to every single buyer that wants to go through due diligence. People say, well, let the CFO do that. Our experience is the CFO is, one, not externally customer friendly or buyer friendly, because he or she may be concerned about their job. So we always plant one of our financial people in there to handle the questions, the responses, the data requests that inevitably come up. That's a way to sell. That's a proactive way to sell. Third, you want to involve your seller's management in the process, even if they're at risk of losing their jobs. They're much better off to be openly part of that process, helping you in the process, understanding the process, than kept in the back room as we'll let you know what the answer is. That's not a good thing to do for any party. Fourth, we always run parallel paths. What does that mean? Well, that means at the point in time we're trying to develop letters of intent, or at the point in time we're trying to negotiate an asset purchase agreement, we always have at least two active bidders involved. Now, of course, that assumes that you have at least two active bidders that are interested. But the reason for that is if you go a single path or one path with one buyer at any point in time, this is the issue of exclusivity, what you've done is eliminated your leverage totally in that transaction. So rarely would we advise being exclusive at any point in the process. Buyers hate this, by the way. They'll tell you they won't participate, they'll tell you that that's unfair, and every one of them will participate because they're active and eager for the deal. We also love to have buyers bump into each other during due diligence, especially if buyers don't like each other. Oftentimes this works real well with private equity firms, some of which people came out of one firm, went to another. They're strong competitors. Maybe they even dislike each other. We consciously schedule their due diligence in the same day and accidentally let them bump into each other. That allows a competitive thing or any competitive factor really to emerge, which is a real healthy thing in an auction. We always also suggest a deal structure as opposed to let the buyer suggest the deal structure. Oftentimes we put out a standard term sheet that we suggest people bid against. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean they bid exactly the way that we want, but we at least have the ability to influence them with the terms that we'd like to see, the conditions we'd like to see, and it probably moves them closer to what we call a seller-friendly term sheet than a buyer-friendly term sheet. We also understand that when you're selecting a stalking horse bidder, that our view is if you have multiple bidders, the simplicity of the term sheet is more important than the highest price. And the reason for that is that if you force upon people a term sheet, terms and conditions that are standard, and make people bid against that, then the only issue at play is really the value, the dollars. Oftentimes buyers want to be cute and put terms in there that are very difficult, hard to figure out the value, very contingent, and in our experience all that does is lessen the value, lessen the likelihood to close. So we love to go with simple term sheets even if the value is lower on a stalking horse bid, with the assumption that we'll get overbids at the auction, which we usually do. That last couple things, you always want to stand behind one clear negotiator. Any good buyer will try to break you up with negotiate with the investment banker, negotiate with the bank, negotiate with the owner, negotiate with the CEO. They'll try to find anyone to negotiate with and everyone to negotiate with to create confusion. You have to have one negotiator and stand behind them. Working capital adjustments, escrows, reserves, those sort of things are typically designed by the sellers, by the buyers, to give no value at all or minimal value at all to the seller. So to the extent that there's deals out, you have deals out there where your buyers structure in holdbacks, escrows, working capital adjustments. Those are black holes of value that oftentimes result in goose eggs for the sellers. So we try to work those totally out of the equation. Last two things, auctions. Auctions are very much about the human element. People often don't believe that to be the case. They believe that people only pay the economic value of assets. That's not necessarily true. We've all been in situations where we've gone to buy something, at a store or even at an auction, and paid more than we intended to pay when we left that morning. The same thing happens when you have people, human beings, at an auction. So the layout of the room, how people are positioned against one another, what ordered the auction, how you control the auction, are incredibly important things to squeeze out extra value. Oftentimes auctions, people go back and get more authority to bid higher because the dynamics are set up to induce higher bids. And the last thing we'll point out again is that we don't want to forget the issue that order to liquidation value is in fact a real bidder on a distressed company, and our view is that you want to detail that and explain that to people so they understand what the seller's view of order to liquidation value is, so that they know what that value is, because that's the floor they're bidding against. Well, that concludes all three segments of how to sell a distressed business. Remember, we started out with talking about the uniqueness of selling a distressed business. Secondarily, we talked about some of the common mistakes that buyers of distressed businesses made. And then today we concluded with some of the key points and key takeaways if you're trying to sell a distressed business. Hope you found this is interesting. Please, if you do need to sell a distressed business, hire a distressed investment banker. Thank you.